Ever wondered if a letter could turn your dream home into a living nightmare? Imagine stepping into your new house, only to be greeted by unsettling letters from someone watching you, knowing your every move. What started as a new beginning quickly descended into a tale of fear, obsession, and a mysterious watcher. Who is this entity that claimed a right to watch over the house for decades? Dive into this real-life horror story, uncover the chilling details, and join us as we explore the enigma of the Watcher. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss any future uploads. Now, let's get into the story. In the summer of 2014, Derek Broaddus decided to check his mail in the new house he and his wife Maria had recently bought in Westfield, New Jersey. They had sealed the deal on this 6-bedroom property at 657 Boulevard 3 days prior, and were currently sprucing it up for their move. Amidst the usual bills, Derek spotted a white card-like envelope marked "The New Owner" in bold, awkward handwriting. Inside there was a letter on a typed note that began,
"Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood."
For Derek and Maria, acquiring 657 Boulevard fulfilled a long-held dream. Having been raised in Westfield, Maria found the house just a short distance from where she spent her childhood. On the other hand, Derek hailed from Maine, coming from a background of blue-collar workers. His career journey began with an entry-level position at a Manhattan insurance company, eventually ascending to senior vice president. His success and dedication culminated a salary that made the purchase of the $1.3 million home possible. As Derek continued through the letter, its narrative shifted unexpectedly. The letter posed intriguing questions.
How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now. As it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been overseeing and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather and my father watched the house in the 1920s and the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out.
The letter's author didn't stop at mere inquiries. He detailed his observations, highlighting not only the Broaddus' vehicle but also the renovation efforts underway, expressing a concern that these changes might compromise the house's intended state. Just a few days before, the couple swung by the house to touch base with the neighbors. Their kids, aged 5, 8, and 10, were having a blast in the backyard, mingling with the other neighborhood children. This detail didn't escape the letter's writer, who noted,
"You have children. I have seen them. So far, I think there are 3 that I have counted."
And even inquired,
"More on the way? Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family? Or was it greed to bring me your children? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me."
The envelope came without a return address. Closing out, the letter posed a chilling riddle.
Who am I? Hundreds and hundreds of cars drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I am in one. Look at all the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I am in one. Look out at any of the many windows on 657 Boulevard and at everyone who strolls by daily. Maybe I am one of them.
It signed off in a flowing cursive as
The Watcher.
Upon finishing the letter, Derek immediately switched off all the lights, making it impossible for outsiders to peer into the house, and promptly contacted the Westfield Police Department. When an officer arrived and went through the letter, his response was blunt.
"What the hell is this?"
He questioned Derek about potential adversaries or anyone with a motive to harm his family. The officer then advised relocating the construction gear from the courtyard as a precaution to prevent the mysterious sender from potentially hurling it through a window. Derek returned to where his wife and kids stayed, their previous Westfield home. After sharing the unsettling events with Maria, they reached out through email to John and Andrea Woods, the previous owners of 657 Boulevard, curious if they had any clues about the Watcher or the reason behind the mention in the letter.
"I asked the Woods to bring me young blood, and it looks like they listened."
Andrea got back to them the following day, revealing that they too had received a letter from the Watcher shortly before moving out. Describing the letter as odd and noting its similar tone about the family overseeing the house, Andrea mentioned they had brushed it off, having never dealt with anything of the sort during their 23-year residency, and had discarded the letter without much thought. Later, the Woods accompanied Maria Broaddus to the police station. Detective Leonard Lugo advised her to keep the letters a secret, especially from the neighbors, who were now under suspicion. Located just 45 minutes from New York, Westfield is where newcomers might find a friendly note from the neighbors upon arrival. Home to around 30,000 residents, the town is predominantly inhabited by affluent families. The Broaddus family's residence was on the Boulevard, a spacious, tree-bordered street renowned for housing some of the town's most sought-after properties. As the Watcher pointed out in his letter,
"The Boulevard used to be the street to live on. You know you made it if you lived on the Boulevard."
2 weeks after receiving the first unsettling letter, Maria stopped by 657 Boulevard to check on some paint samples and discovered another letter awaiting her.
"Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard."
They remarked on the flurry of activity at the house, observing the family unloading their possessions and commenting on adding a dumpster, hinting at curiosity about discoveries within the home's walls over time. In this letter, the Watcher specifically named Derek and Maria, although with a spelling mistake, as Mr. and Mrs. Broaddus, suggesting they may have overheard a contractor mispronounce their name. Boasting an increased knowledge about the family, particularly the children, the Watcher showed an eerie familiarity with the kids, distinguishing them by age and nicknames, expressing satisfaction in learning their names, and referring to the newcomers as
young blood.
Intriguingly, he inquired about the child seen painting on an easel on the porch, asking,
"Is she the artist in the family?" 657 Boulevard eagerly awaits your arrival. It's been a long while since youthful energy filled its corridors. Are you yet to uncover all its hidden facets? Will the young ones venture into the basement, or does the solitude there deter them? It's quite secluded from the home's main areas. Should you be upstairs, their calls might not reach you. And what about the attic? Will it be a place for rest, or will you prefer the second floor for your slumbers? Whose rooms face the street? I'll find out once you've settled in, helping me to understand the layout of your family better. Then, my planning can become more precise. Every window and door at 657 Boulevard lets me glimpse your lives, allowing me to monitor your movements within its walls. The Boulevard is more than a duty to me. It's a calling, an obsession. And now the Broaddus family wishes you a joyful move-in day. Rest assured, I'll be keeping a close watch.
Following the disturbing content of that letter, Maria and Derek decided to keep their children away from 657 Boulevard, uncertain about moving into the house. The arrival of a third letter a few weeks later only intensified their unease.
"Where have you gone to? 657 Boulevard is missing you."
In the ensuing months, as the renovations at 657 Boulevard concluded, including installing a sophisticated security system, the idea of residence there still haunted the Broaddus family with intense concern for their children's safety. Derek even went as far as to advertise for a military veteran, suggesting a simple job that required daily spending time in the backyard. However, they realized that their dream home was not supposed to feel like a prison. Ultimately, the pivotal question they faced was about the level of risk they were prepared to accept. Ultimately, they concluded their children's safety was paramount, and the risk was too great to justify moving into 657 Boulevard. Their initial excitement about the new house quickly turned into fear. The situation only worsened as the Watcher's behavior became increasingly unsettling. The Broadduses still found themselves financially tied to 657 Boulevard, covering the mortgage and property taxes while staying at Maria's parents' home. This stress began to strain their relationship, leading to frequent arguments and reliance on medication for sleep. Maria, amidst this turmoil, sought therapy and was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. Her therapist advised that the path to recovery involved severing ties with the house that had become a source of their anguish. In response to their distressing circumstances, the Broadduses took matters into their own hands. Derek became obsessed with uncovering the truth, installing webcams around the property, and spending countless nights looking for any signs of surveillance. Not stopping there, they enlisted the help of specialists, including a private investigator who scrutinized the neighbors' backgrounds, yet nothing suspicious emerged. emerged. The quest for answers led Derek to Robert Lenehan, a former FBI agent who was asked to perform a risk assessment. The letters themselves offered clues that hinted at an older individual's involvement. Addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Broaddus, featuring peculiarities like weather-related greetings and double spaces after periods, the correspondence displayed a distinctive style. They reflected a level of literary flair indicative of someone well-read, and notably, despite the evident anger, vulgar language was absent, suggesting the person behind them might not conform to typically aggressive traits. The Broadduses intensified their efforts to uncover the identity behind the Watcher's letters by setting up surveillance and consulting experts, including a private investigator and a former FBI agent, Robert Lenehan. The investigation revealed the letters' authors were likely to be older, evidenced by formal address formats, weather-based greetings, and double-spaced sentences, suggesting a person more accustomed to traditional writing than digital communication. Despite the detailed and often elegant language, the absence of vulgarities amidst evident anger pointed towards a specific personality type, possibly less aggressive. Detectives doubted the threats would materialize into action, noting the letters' unpredictable errors and a discernible resentment towards affluent newcomers, accusing them of altering the town's character. The Watcher lamented the modern renovations to 657 Boulevard, claiming these changes erased the home's storied past and yearning for the young blood of earlier decades, echoing a twisted inheritance of vigilance from their father. The investigation broadened to include the house's former caretakers and their families, but failed to uncover any leads. 6 months later, facing the unexplained mystery, the Broaddus family listed 657 Boulevard for sale, hoping to recoup their investment plus the cost of renovations. However, the home's lingering vacancy, fueled by rumors, hindered their efforts. The former owners, John and Andrea Woods, downplayed the letter's significance, claiming a peaceful tenure in the home without the need for stringent security measures. Disagreeing, the Broaddus felt potential buyers deserved a warning. They sued the Woods family for non-disclosure in June 2015, a year after the purchase. The lawsuit, however, was eventually dismissed, leaving the Broadduses to confront the situation without legal action against the previous owners. After a local reporter unearthed the Broadduses' police complaint, revealing snippets of the Watcher's threats, the story exploded, thwarting the family's attempt to keep it sealed. The revelation of the Watcher's letters not only captivated media attention, but also shook the tight-knit community of Westfield. The town's residents found themselves at the heart of an unfolding mystery that seemed more akin to a thriller novel than their everyday lives. In response, community meetings were convened, allowing residents to voice their concerns and seek reassurance about their safety. The ensuing media storm saw news crews descend on 657 Boulevard, with one even conducting surveillance from outside. Amidst the chaos, Derek was advised by a crisis management consultant, recommended by a colleague, to remain silent to protect their children from further public scrutiny. The mystery deepened with the Watcher's hint about secrets hidden within the walls, leading to online speculation about using ground-penetrating radars for investigation. However, a home inspection had previously identified only outdated insulation as an issue, dispelling rumors of hidden objects. Online sleuths on Reddit became fixated with a Google Maps Street View image showing a car outside the house, with claims of spotting a man holding a camera in the driver's seat, adding another layer to the enigma surrounding 657 Boulevard. The Broaddus family faced criticism for handling the Watcher's letters, with many suggesting they should have ignored the threats and moved in. Encouraged by the notion that public interest might attract buyers, they listed 657 Boulevard for sale again in the spring of 2016. Determined to identify the Watcher, Derek and Maria meticulously analyzed the handwriting of every visitor who showed interest in the house, hoping for a match. However, the sale process hit a snag. Initially unfazed and perhaps even enticed by the mystery of a chance at a reduced price, potential buyers retreated upon reading the letters. Derek remembers one particularly confident individual from Staten Island who, despite initially dismissing the warnings, decided against the purchase after reviewing the correspondence, disappearing without a trace. Driven by necessity, the Broaddus family considered selling 657 Boulevard to a developer with plans to demolish it and construct 2 smaller homes, each priced at $1 million. Despite local resistance, such subdivision practices were growing common in Westfield, and the property's size made it a prime candidate. However, the catch was the requirement for a variante from the Westfield Planning Board, as the proposed lots would be slightly narrower than the zoning requirements by 3 feet. The public disclosure of this plan ignited heated debates debates across Westfield's Facebook communities, with many viewing it as the peak of a deceitful scheme. A resident expressed that this potential development move was the most unsettling aspect of the entire saga. A 3-hour hearing in January 2017 saw the Broaddus's lawyer, James Forst, arguing the minor nature of the needed variance, comparing it to the width of an easel. Yet neighbors voiced their concerns over the environmental and aesthetic impacts of the proposed division, fearing the loss of trees and disapproving of the design choices for the new homes. At the hearing, Abby Langford, whose brother was a suspect, passionately defended the aesthetic integrity of her neighborhood, lamenting the potential loss of a beautiful view she had cherished for nearly 6 decades. Ultimately, the board sided with the community's sentiment, denying the Broaddus's request to subdivide the property. Months later, the Broaddus's found tenants for 657 Boulevard, a family with adult children and 2 large dogs, hoping this arrangement might end their ordeal. However, their relief was short-lived. Within 2 weeks, the new renter presented Derek with a chilling letter from the watcher, who had been silent for over 2 years. This latest message was filled with contempt, taunting Derek and Maria with insinuations of proximity and a mocking challenge to their ignorance of the watcher's identity. It hinted at an unsettling possibility. The watcher might be hiding in plain sight among the neighbors, either unknown to them or recognized but protected by a veil of fear. The watcher's latest message showed intense rage, closely monitoring the saga's unfolding. Admitting to observing the media frenzy, the writer stated,
"I walked by the news trucks when they took over my neighborhood and mocked me."
The watcher had also closely watched Derek's attempts to unmask him, noting,
"I watched as you watched from the dark house in an attempt to find me. Telescopes and binoculars are wonderful inventions."
Reflecting on the efforts to demolish the house, he remarked,
657 Boulevard survived your attempted assault and stood strong with its army of supporters barricading its gates.
Furthermore, the letter ominously hinted at various forms of retaliation, ranging from accidents and illnesses to the distressing demise of a pet or loved ones, emphasizing a malicious intent towards the family living in the house. Maria remarked, "It was like we were back at the beginning." Yet she saw a silver lining as the latest letter contained clues vital for reigniting the investigation. Derek promptly delivered this piece of evidence to the police, where an officer pinpointing a circle with a 300-yard radius on a map around the house implied that the watcher could be hiding within that area. Derek observed, "In my view, it's one of 10 houses in the world." By July of 2019, the Broadduses sold the house, although at a financial loss. The sale records from the Union County Clerk's office indicated a final price of approximately $959,000 on July 1st. The Zillow listing described the property as a single-family home, sprawling over 3,920 square feet and on nearly half an acre. The new proprietors, Andrew and Allison Carr, opted not to speak to the media, prioritizing their safety and privacy. With the property changing hands, attention now shifts to unraveling the mysteries that linger around 657 Boulevard. Following the unsettling arrival of the watcher's letters, Derek found himself in conversation with John Schmidt, his neighbor a couple of houses away. John shared insights about the Langfords, whose residence sat between theirs. With Peggy Langford in her 90s and her adult children, all in their 60s, residing with her, the family had a reputation for being peculiar but benign. Michael Langford, one of Peggy's children, known for not holding a job and was diagnosed with schizophrenia, occasionally alarmed new residents by wandering through yards or looking into windows. Despite these unsettling behaviors, those familiar with Michael described his actions as eccentric forms of neighborliness. For instance, John recounted how Michael routinely fetched his morning newspaper, a gesture of goodwill. Long-standing acquaintances of Michael firmly believed he lacked the disposition to be behind the watcher's menacing correspondences. Derek began to suspect that John Schmidt had inadvertently pointed him towards a solution. The Langford residence, situated near the easel visible from the porch, had been their home since the 1960s, aligning with the watcher's claims of his father's surveillance of 657 Boulevard beginning around the same time. Richard Langford, the family patriarch, had passed away 12 years prior. The watcher had indicated in his communications that he had taken up the surveillance mantle for nearly 2 decades. Upon sharing his suspicions with the authorities, Detective Lugo interviewed Michael Langford, who denied authoring the letters. With no concrete evidence against him, Michael was released. In an attempt to elicit a reaction, the Broadduses informed the Langfords of their demolition plans for 657 Boulevard through a letter, yet Michael's response remained non-existent. A subsequent interview saw Michael's sister, Abby, criticize the police for what she perceived as undue pressure on their family, highlighting the ongoing tension and mystery surrounding the Watcher's identity. To navigate the escalating situation, the Broadduses enlisted the help of attorney Lee Levitt, who facilitated a meeting with the Langfords. During this encounter, the Broadduses presented unsettling letters and photographs to illustrate how the Langford property offered a clear view of the easel on their porch. Participants in the meeting later reported a rise in tension as the Langfords steadfastly defended Michael's innocence. Sandy Langford also highlighted the family's long-standing presence on the boulevard since 1961, emphasizing their history of peaceful coexistence with neighbors. The sudden accusation from the letters led to frustration, as the Langfords felt unfairly targeted over the mysterious circumstances surrounding the Broadduses. Exploring other leads became essential for the investigation, especially after acknowledging Michael Langford had already been interviewed before the dispatch of a subsequent letter, suggesting the actual perpetrator might be more calculating. The broader neighborhood also warranted scrutiny. A significant development came when a DNA test on one of the letters revealed female genetic markers, shifting focus towards other potential suspects, including Abby Langford, a real estate agent. Speculation arose over whether frustration over a missed commission could be a motive. However, this theory was debunked when Abby's DNA, collected from a water bottle, did not match the evidence. Eventually, the prosecutor's office communicated to the Broadduses that the Langfords were no longer considered suspects. The Watcher remained elusive, leaving no electronic clues or fingerprints to trace. During a surveillance operation one evening, detectives inside a van noticed a vehicle halting in front of the house around 11 p.m., sparking their curiosity due to its prolonged stop. Upon investigation, they linked the car to a young woman whose boyfriend resided on the same block as 657 Boulevard. She shared with the police that her boyfriend was fond of some dark video games, notably one where a character named the Watcher was featured. Although the boyfriend, living elsewhere then, initially agreed to an interview, he ultimately failed to attend. With insufficient evidence, the detectives could not mandate his appearance for questioning. An elderly couple residing behind 657 Boulevard for nearly 5 decades became part of the intricate web of potential connections. Bill Woodward, the painter, had observed the husband observing the Broaddus home from a lawn chair. Intriguingly, one of their children had married someone who spent their childhood on 657 Boulevard. This detail fueled speculation that the Watcher might have been someone with a personal history with the house, evident from the accurate descriptions of its interior, including the basement. However, no concrete evidence linking this couple to the unsettling letters left the detectives with no actionable leads. In one theory, the Broadduses might have experienced regret after purchasing the costly property, finding themselves financially overextended. Thus, they concocted a complex plot to escape the transaction. Alternatives suggested include the possibility of insurance fraud or angling for a lucrative media deal. Indeed, Netflix has secured the story rights and has released a mini-series back in October of 2022. Observers noted the Broadduses' real estate history, escalating from a $300,000 to a $770,000 home and eventually to a $1.3 million property, consistently refinancing along the way. Neighbors raised eyebrows over the continuous renovations at 657 Boulevard, despite the family's apparent reluctance to move in. Moreover, some questioned Maria's commitment to her children's safety, given that her public Facebook profile displayed her kids' names and images, suggesting conflicting attitudes towards privacy and security. After the Planning Commission dismissed the Broadduses' renovation plans, the families who had been most critical of them online found eerily similar letters in their mailboxes, purportedly from friends of the Broaddus family. These letters, mirroring the style of the Watcher's correspondence, chastised the recipients for their unjust speculations about the Broadduses. It was later revealed that Derek was the author of these retaliatory letters. While he confessed to not taking pride in his actions, he stressed that these were the only instances of him engaging in such letter writing. Delving into the intricacies of this case and examining the evidence, it becomes apparent that the letters suggest a local origin. They were routed through the Kearney, New Jersey, U.S. Postal Service Distribution Center. They bore a June 4th postmark, predating public knowledge of the home's sale. The Woodses hadn't advertised the property with a for sale sign, and the renovation was confined to the interior, largely invisible from the street. Moreover, dense foliage obscured an easel placed on the porch from street view, implying that only someone with access to a vantage point from behind or adjacent to the house could have seen it. This points to the watcher likely residing nearby and knowledgeable enough to mention the family's names and details. The years between letters suggest a long-term engagement with the unfolding events at 657 Boulevard. The timing of the letters coinciding with the sale and subsequent renovations of the house strongly suggests the irritation stemmed from someone within the neighborhood, upset by the modifications to 657 Boulevard. The watcher's decision to send a letter to another Westfield family could have been a strategic move to divert suspicion from the immediate neighbors of 657 and lead investigators to believe that the threat was more widespread. The focus on the Langfords initially seemed disproportionate, bordering on a witch hunt rather than a methodical inquiry. The discovery of female DNA on one of the letters might have been intentionally misleading, possibly a tactic by the watcher to misdirect the investigation away from male suspects. His menacing focus on children and claims of being a third-generation watcher hint at an older individual's involvement. Moreover, the question arises as to why the Broadduses didn't install comprehensive surveillance, including around-the-clock security cameras and motion-detecting cameras at the mailbox. In an era where technology readily offers such security solutions, the absence of continuous footage capturing activity around the mailbox is puzzling, suggesting a missed opportunity to gather crucial evidence. Considering the information gathered, we conclude that the watcher genuinely exists, and the Broadduses were not behind the letters, despite later profiting from a Netflix deal on the case. It appears the watcher is likely still living near 657 Boulevard, possibly an individual in their mid-40s to 50s. We have explored every lead available. We are eager to hear your thoughts and theories on this case. What's your take on the events surrounding 657 Boulevard? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I really appreciate all of you, and I thank you for watching and diving into the mystery of 657 Boulevard with me. If you're interested in this story and crave more, then check out the other stories on the channel. If you have a topic suggestion, please send it to the email in the description. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your thoughts and theories could help shed light on this and many other mysteries. So until next time, keep your eyes open and stay curious.